There it says I'm live. Nice. Excellent. It says there's one person. Unless Lewis are you the one person in the live stream? Okay, let's make it sure. That's cool. Did you guys? I didn't have this last week, right? You guys didn't see this? You know what this is? This is a Rock Band microphone, and it works so amazing. I'm being serious because like other students have told me that their teachers are trying to teach and everything's like muffled or they're not talking to the camera or something like that. And they said that when I had this microphone, they were just like, I hear every word you were saying. I'm like, that's awesome. It was a Beatles edition Rock Band. Be jealous. Anyway, whatever. We'll get to this. So I wanted to start off today talking a little bit about fantasy football and what my expectations for you guys are going to be. Now, I mentioned this to the class yesterday, but here's the first big thing. You are invited to join the Marquee Math of Sports Fantasy Football League. You have automatically been given an invitation via your Barnegat School's email. You have to check your Barnegat School's email and join that way. Everybody is on a team. There's 22 students, and there's 2 people per team. So there's 11 teams right there. Because I'm the 12th team, I will be a team as well, and it would be great. Attached to this assignment are your team pairings. It was done randomly, but it was done randomly within your own cohorts, meaning this is what, cohort 2? Okay. You were randomly assigned within cohort 2. So for the most part, your teammates should be in this room, unless it's like a virtual person, but I believe it should be in this room. Same thing with my first cohort 1, my Wednesday group. I randomly assigned them within that cohort. So you should see it. I'll show it to you at the bottom. I shared a Google Doc with everybody. It's a separate Google Doc where everybody said, like, I believe it said Math of Sports and then 2 last names. You should have gotten that, and you should have access to that with your teammate. Let me bring the mouse down here real quick. Hold on. Just for the sake of argument, if you didn't see the team pairings, there we go. There are my team pairings. Gotcha. You have each been added as an owner, and you will make decisions together. There you go. Yeah. Of course, you can change the team name. I know some people already did change the team name. That's perfectly acceptable as long as you keep it appropriate. I can see everything. Mother-in-law for like 14 years.
You see they're talking about like protesting the game tonight?
We'll see what happens.
So
I'm not going to get into political discussions or anything like that. I know. But I'm also in a league that I've been in about 5 or 6 years with a bunch of teachers in the school as well. Yeah.
I think I know the teachers. Who is he?
Fitz, Liston, Blasi. A teacher used to be here, Houlihan, McTaggart, Fonseca. A bunch of people.
Yeah, no, Watson's my starting quarterback, so they don't play this field.
I got you. Now, here's the deal. Our draft is going to occur after week 1, right? But ESPN does a thing where after the draft, they will automatically calculate what would have happened with the team that you draft. So keep in mind, week 1 will still be calculated. Keep that in mind. It's going to be fantastic. But everybody has been given a Google Doc. So for example, I sent a Google Doc entitled Math of Sports Hair DeSanto to these 2 guys in which they can access it. Now, as teammates, you are going to document the decisions that you make. You are going to document the decisions that you make together. This is a cooperative thing, so to speak. So please keep that in mind. In terms of changing things, yes, but here's going to be the deal now, right? So let's say on a Wednesday, because the first game's typically on a Thursday, right? On a Wednesday, you will, or Tuesday, I don't know, you'll have a discussion with your teammate. I don't know why it keeps doing this. It keeps bringing me my fantasy baseball league. But you'll have a discussion with your teammate. And you'll look at your team and be like, okay, I want to know why. Why? Why are you benching this person in favor of this person? Sometimes it's super easy. It's like, oh, this guy's on a bye week. Cool. Type it into the Google Doc. Very easy sentence. We need to drop this guy and pick up this guy. Why? I want to know why. I want to know why. I want to see your decision making. I do. In terms of drafting, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go to your team page right here, and there's something here called Edit Draft Strategy. Now, with the time that I have either today or tomorrow, I'm hoping to make a video as to how to go about this. But there's two ways to edit your draft strategy. You can change the ranking. You can change the ranking of every single player. You could change it by position. Like there's position. You can change the ranking if you wanted to there. For example, in my one league that I've been in, it's a keeper league. And I didn't realize that the one team already had Lamar Jackson. But thankfully, I got Patrick Mahomes. So I'm pretty sure I'm good, But anyway, but you can change that around. You can also do auto pick strategy, in which, again, I'm going to make a video about this, where you can put limits as to the minimum number of players you have or what position you want by pick. So with your first pick, I want a quarterback. With my second pick, I want a running back. And it'll give you the best available based on the rankings that you do. It's actually pretty sweet, especially if you're not able to be there for a draft, or in our case, it's going to be an auto draft. Sometime on Tuesday, it's just literally going to go all the way through and pick everybody's teams based on the order that we pick and your rankings. The draft order will be randomly determined sometime on Monday. The draft order will be randomly determined. Actually, no, maybe I'll make it earlier than Monday. I might determine the draft order when I make that video for you guys. I think that'd be pretty solid. Yeah. I'll make you one promise. If by some random chance I get the number one pick, which could happen, I'll put myself at what's an appropriate thing? Because we do a snake draft. You know what I'm saying? So if you get the 12th pick, you get double picks. So what's an 6? Okay, I don't know. I'll put myself somewhere else. If I'm number 1, I'll put myself somewhere else. If I'm number 2, maybe I'll keep it there. But we'll see. It's gonna be pretty great. Then throughout the season, again, you're gonna be able to compete with each other. Yesterday, for some reason, some people started talking money. I said, no, please do not talk about money in my presence. Please do not. Whatever you do outside of class, that's completely up to you. But I need plausible deniability. You know what that means? Plausible deniability. Plausible deniability is basically, I need to be able to deny I knew anything about that. So don't say it in my presence. Anyway. So let's see here. They're whispering. So here's what you need to do. Here are what you need to do. You and your teammate need to do. I'm trying to highlight this little paragraph right here. There we go. You will submit this assignment when you have completed the following tasks. You and your teammate both accept the invitation to the league. You need to do that, number 1. Number 2, you and your teammate discuss draft strategy and record decisions on the Google Doc that I've shared with you. You should already have that Google Doc. And number 3, your ESPN draft strategy is adjusted on the website. Once you have done all 3 of those things, then submit this assignment, and we're good to go. Then I should be able to check your Google Doc and be like, yes, I can see exactly what you did. On the Google Doc, you will record all decisions made for your fantasy team. You can even trade with other teams. Hey, we're going to make a trade with such and such team. Why? Well, this player, I want this player. Well, give me your rationale. I want to know. This is a mathematics of sports class. There's going to be mathematics. There's going to be statistics. I want to see the rationale for that. So, and I even put a note at the bottom right here. Come on, there we go. Tomorrow after school, which is now today or tomorrow, tomorrow after school, I should be able to make a short video showing you how to adjust your draft strategy. The draft is scheduled to auto pick Tuesday, the 15th. Week 1 is already in the books, but it will calculate wins and losses. This is meant to be a friendly competition that will play into the fantasy football unit. That will play into the football unit of this class later in the year. And I say this for Matt because you keep telling me that football's not your thing, or fantasy football's not your thing, right? Even if football's not your thing, please try your best and ask questions if you haven't. So it's meant to be fun. It's meant to be friendly. And after the champion is declared, I haven't figured out what it's going to be just yet, but I may have a small prize for the 2 winners who end up winning this whole thing. As I mentioned, there are 12 teams in the league, and the top 6 will make the playoffs, with the top 2 getting first-round buys. I'm excited. So excited. I'm the commissioner of the baseball and the football fantasy leagues in this school. I make trophies for them. It's really wonderful. Huh? Maybe get you like a mini trophy. I think it'd be cool. Like if I can get like a giant trophy that I could put like names on. You know what I'm talking? No. But I keep the giant trophy because then I put your name on it. No. Well, it's like like they have the banners up in the gymnasium with people's names on them. They don't keep those. No, they can't. The school bought them. Whatever. Anyway, I got 5 people in the chat. Tell me who you are. I want to know who's in the chat right now. I want to know who I'm looking at. You do that. I'll be back and look at that in a minute. Anyway, fantasy football. Make sure you take care of those assignments. There is a second assignment. That is what we're going to be focusing on today. Let's talk about baseball. Let's talk about baseball. I know. You say boo. What sport do you like? Yeah. Okay. What about baseball? Baseball, they have called the American pastime. Yes, it could be considered quote unquote boring, but you may not be looking for the right things. I bring my son is now 6 years old. I bring my son to a baseball game and he may not understand what is happening. He may not be engaged by what is happening, but I am at a point in my life where I could watch a baseball game and there are like 50 different things that I could see on the field that are happening when nobody is moving because of how important it is to what is about to happen. It's that bated anticipation for waiting for that moment where if a hit is about to happen or a strikeout is about to happen or can that guy make the catch or will the ball make it over the fence or can he run fast enough? Baseball is a game that is for the patient. You think about like basketball and hockey. Basketball and hockey are sports for people with like ADD. A lot of the time. It just go, 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 go. Football's dumb. No. Football's not dumb. But football is like, how long does a play last in football? Honestly. 4 seconds. And then there's like 45 seconds of standing around. And then the play happens for 4 seconds. And there's 45 seconds of standing around. Is that accurate? Yeah. They have a shot clock now for that. A couple years ago, they introduced a shot clock into baseball for pitchers where they have a minimum. Yeah, they have a minimum number of time in order to throw the next pitch. Yeah.
I don't know. But in a game, honestly, if you watch a game, they do go pretty fast. Like they try to get the next.
They can. You know, it's really cool. Minor league baseball. I'll tell you this one story before I go into the first thing about baseball because I have a couple of videos that I want to show you about the history of baseball. Okay. It's kind of interesting. I really like it. But anyway, my dad and I typically go to Blue Claws games. We get like tickets. They're really cheap, right? So my dad and I one summer, like we went to like all these Blue Claws games because we could go to at least 4 or 5 a season. But this year, of course, there was nothing. And then there was a year they made the playoffs. And I'm like, oh, Dad, we have to go to a playoff game. So like my dad and I go to this playoff game. It's like the deciding game in the semifinals of the playoffs. They pitch a no-hitter. Yeah. And they win that half of that division or whatever, and they move on to the championship series. They ended up losing that year in the championship, but like, oh, that was so great.
I got to throw out a first pitch on it.
Oh, yeah?
Perfect strike. Yeah. I swear to God.
Okay, I got you. No, I'm just saying in terms of like, I mentioned this last week, but like my dad is an old school baseball fan. There's no sadder fan in baseball. Cubs, Red Sox, don't care. There's no sadder fan than a Brooklyn Dodger fan. A Brooklyn Dodger fan. Yeah, Brooklyn Dodgers lost the World Series in 47 and 49, in 52 and 53, and then they finally won in 55. They finally won in 1955, the Brooklyn Dodgers, after existing for like however many decades, this team. And then what happened a few years after the Brooklyn Dodgers won the World Series? They moved to LA. Yes. Oh, yeah, he was 16. He was 16 when that happened. So great. Anyway, let me get the first thing started. Now, for those of you in the chat, I'm going to try and throw these links actually into the chat when I get back to the computer. But we're going to watch a couple quick videos real quick. There's one on the history of baseball, which, again, I do find very interesting. It does give an idea as to what baseball is about. And one is like very silly. It's from this stupid Adam Sandler Netflix movie, which goes over the fake history of baseball. But it's actually kind of interesting. You'll see what I mean. So I'm going to throw these links into the chat. when I get over here, but I'm going to ask that you guys pay attention to the following couple of videos. Let me bring the volume up here.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help.
Copy.
This sentence is grammatically correct, but it's wordy and hard to read. It undermines the writer's message, and the word choice is bland. Grammarly's cutting-edge technology helps you craft compelling, understandable writing that makes an impact on your reader. Much better. Are you ready to give it a try?
Where's the chat?
Installation is simple and free. Visit Grammarly.com today.
All right. Well, apparently I can't throw it into the chat because the chat doesn't actually exist on this computer for some reason. So I'm gonna have to just figure out another way to do that. In the meantime, here we go.
October 3rd, 1951. The New York Giants face off against the Brooklyn Dodgers in the deciding game in a tied series for the National League pennant. Bottom of the ninth inning, down by 2 runs with runners on second and third, 1 out. Bobby Thompson steps up to the plate.
Bobby Thompson takes a strike ball on the inside corner. Bobby hitting it 292. Like a throw.
See, the interesting thing about baseball back in the 40s and 50s, not all the time, but the most dominant teams were the New York Giants, the Brooklyn Dodgers, and the New York Yankees. They were all condensed within New York City, which is really crazy. So they constantly had crosstown rivalries. Do you know what this home run was called? Shot heard around the world. Kind of a play on the Revolutionary War, shot heard around the world. But I don't know. My dad, my dad was probably 12 years old when this happened. So I don't know if he was at this game or not, but he was 12 years old. He probably didn't really know the ramifications on this, but it was just so pivotal. Anyway.
Bobby Thompson's shot heard around the world may have been the greatest moment in all of baseball, America's pastime. The game started back in the 1800s and America's first professional sport. While Abner Doubleday is usually credited with the creation of baseball in 1839, the first rules of baseball were written in 1845 by a New York baseball club, the Knickerbockers. Alexander Cartwright, the author, is commonly referred to as the father of baseball. May 4th, 1869. The Cincinnati Red Stockings play the first professional baseball game in a 45-9 win over the Great Westerns of Cincinnati. Between 1845 and 1869, players were mainly amateurs and played only in their own city. The Red Stockings played nationally and posted a 65-0 record in 1869, the only perfect record in baseball history. The first attempt at forming a major league was the National Association of Professional Baseball Players, which lasted from 1871 to 1875. In 1876, a more structured league, the National League, was formed. The National League is the oldest surviving major league, and its counterpart, the American League, was founded in 1901. The National Agreement of 1903 formalized relations between the two leagues and signaled the advent of the World Series, which pits the two league champions against each other. Baseball became increasingly profitable as its popularity grew, which led to disputes between the players and owners over income distribution and control. These disputes culminated in 1919 with the Black Sox scandal, in which members of the Chicago White Sox conspired to throw the 1919 World Series. This scandal led to the formation of a new National Commission of Baseball and a commissioner, which oversees both leagues and brought them closer. Before 1920, most baseball was played with scrappy, scratch-for-runs play. This era, known as the dead ball era, ended in 1920 with multiple rule changes that made it more advantageous for hitters. This resulted in more runs and sluggers, players who hit for power, than before. This era saw the rise of perhaps the most famous player in all of baseball, Babe Ruth.
The greatest athletic feat in the United States is to hit a home run. It's a wonderful moment where the ball goes off the playing field, and everything kind of stops and the guy gets to celebrate. And that really didn't exist before Babe Ruth.
In the late 20s and 30s, St. Louis general manager Branch Rickey developed the first modern farm system where younger players gain experience before moving to the next level. December 7th, 1941. Japan attacks Pearl Harbor, forcing America to enter into World War II. As most players went off to fight in the war, Chicago Cubs owner Philip K. Wrigley formed the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League to help keep the game in the public eye. This all-girls professional league lasted from 1943 to 1954, as the end of the war allowed the major leagues to rebound. On April 15, 1947, the most historic event in baseball occurred when Jackie Robinson debuted for the Brooklyn Dodgers and broke the league's color barrier. Since the beginning of baseball, African Americans had not been allowed to play with whites and had to instead form their own leagues, such as the Negro National League and the Negro American League. While he may not have been the best player in the Negro Leagues at the time, Robinson, talented, educated, and more importantly, with the emotional fortitude to handle the abuse, succeeded in the league. General manager Branch Rickey of the Brooklyn Dodgers recognized this inner strength and signed him. While integration was slow-paced, black participation rose steadily to 27% by 1974.
What's interesting, real quick, is number one, this video was made like years ago, but it's actually kind of timely. I mean, considering Chadwick Boseman died, because he played Jackie Robinson in the movie 42, right? They in 1997, they retired the number 42 for every player across the league. It had never been done before. I was actually at the game that they retired the number. They retired. It was a Dodgers-Mets game in Shea Stadium in Queens. And it was really cool what they did. Like, they retired it for the entire league. But there were a few players who were allowed to keep that number as long as they had that number before the retirement. And they were allowed to keep that number if they wanted to for the duration of their career, the number 42. But otherwise, you'll never see 42 again. Do you know what famous player also wore 42 afterwards? Yeah. He was allowed to, but he was probably one of the last ones, you know?
There is no greater figure in terms of the impact on the social history in America than Jackie Robinson. In April 1947, when Jackie took the field for the Brooklyn Dodgers, not only did he break the color line of Major League Baseball, but he really broke the color line for mainstream America.
It's almost as if you say, if it costs my life, I'm willing to do it for the cause. And he did that. He was very articulate and, I believe, a great role model for African Americans, but not only for him, for all Americans. He was a great role model.
In 1953, the Major League Baseball Players Association was formed. The union was the first to survive more than a few years and became successful after a few years of ineffectiveness. The union was also successful in creating the designated hitter rule to baseball and in the creation of the free agency system. In 1958, the Brooklyn Dodgers and the New York Giants relocated to California, becoming the first teams to move across the Mississippi. These moves came with the growth of the cities in the West and the new markets available to them, and ensured the league's reach throughout the entire country. The rise of television had the most impact on baseball, as revenue increased dramatically and teams attracted national audiences. Television created channels for sports, such as ESPN, and allowed fans to watch virtually every game from home. The new attention also brought on new attention to players, as for the first time ever, they had elevated to a superstar status.
3 balls and 2 strikes. The overshift is on.
The heck?
Being stuck at home in the
I hate advertisements.
And Bassett deals. And Bonds hit high. It's a dig. It is
August 7th, 2007. Barry Bonds hits home run number 756, breaking Hank Aaron's all-time home run record. This mark is the defining moment of the steroids era. Before 2004, there was no penalty for the use of performance-enhancing drugs. However, the issue over the use of steroids began to attract significant attention in 1998, when Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire both broke Roger Maris's record for home runs in a single season. Since then, several dominant players have been found to use illegal performance-enhancing drugs, most recently, New York Yankees' Alex Rodriguez.
back then. Back in the day, that was it. It was readily available. Guys at gyms talked about it.
Wait, what's up? What's up?
So I have a jersey.
Oh, okay. Mark, which team?
What did you say?
Which team?
Cardinals.
Okay.
It was
My dad liked it.
I believe it was
Gotcha.
the winner of '89 into '90. I was given a couple weeks worth, tried it, never thought anything of it.
Second, I don't know who's on third. You the manager? Yes. You know the guy's name? I'm telling you that name. Oh, who's on first? Yes. Well, go ahead and tell me. Who? The guy on first. Who? The guy playing first base. Who? The guy on first. Who is on first? What are you asking me for? I'm asking you.
Since its beginning, baseball has had a broad impact on the United States, both in culture and in sports. Baseball has given way to numerous award-winning films, literature, comedic sketches, and video games. Baseball also inspired the creation of baseball cards, collecting and trading cards of certain players, which is now extended to most sports. Baseball also inspired the first fantasy leagues, with the invention of rotisserie league baseball. However, the most prominent impact baseball has had on society is the baseball cap, which is now extended to different caps of different designs and logos throughout most of American culture. Today, baseball is played in many countries around the world, with the best competition playing in the major leagues. Currently, the major leagues consist of 30 teams across two leagues, the American League and the National League, with 15 teams in each. Teams play 162 games throughout the year, and the MLB, or Major League Baseball, brings in a yearly revenue of around $7 billion, with the average salary of a single player being around $2.5 million. The impact baseball has had on America is immense to an extent that no other sport can hope to achieve. Baseball has given America a profound influence in everyday society. Baseball's rich history encapsulates all of what is important to America. Many common everyday expressions come from baseball, such as 3 strikes and you're out, that one threw me a curveball, or he hit a home run with that one. Who doesn't know the words to take me out to the ball game? Even non-baseball fans know the lyrics. Baseball is America's pastime. As the great American poet Walt Whitman once said, I see great things in baseball. It's our game, the American game.
Couple of fun facts. Number one, everyone's pretty much heard "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," right? Do you know the guy who wrote it at the time he wrote it had never been to a baseball game? This is really weird. Keep tapping your ears.
Yeah, no.
Why you listening to music? Now, where was I? Right, yeah, that guy. He had never been to a baseball game. The guy who wrote "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" is really kind of messed up. The interesting thing is, like, I grew up in that era of in the late '90s, watching like Sosa, McGuire, and Bonds hitting all these crazy home runs, and no one ever really thought anything of it until they realized, like, have you seen? You should look it up when you get the chance. Barry Bonds' head in the early '90s versus like 2007. The dude's head was like he was taking something, clearly. But I don't know. It's interesting because do you know, in my opinion, who, again, this is for those of you who have some baseball knowledge, who is the greatest player of the 1990s? Like people like McGuire, can't count McGuire. Bonds, can't count Bonds. Sosa, can't count Sosa. Clemens, can't count Clemens, because all these guys got messed up with the performance-enhancing drugs. Jeter started in 95 technically, but 96 was his rookie year.
I don't know if Ricky was more in the 80s or 90s.
Ricky Henderson? Ricky Henderson was more of a stolen base king in the 80s. Yeah, he played for the Oakland A's and the Yankees. My opinion, again, this is just an opinion, and again, you're going to learn about the opinions versus objective thought in a little bit, because we're going to deal with some statistics. Ken Griffey Jr.
Oh, yeah.
Ken Griffey Jr.
I can agree with that.
Dude was never implicated with steroid use. Dude had the sweetest swing of all time. Just saying. Now, this is kind of like a dry kind of history of baseball, but it does give an accurate reflection as to how things were. It's pretty crazy. But there is also a silly example of the history of baseball that I want to show you. Let me see here. Playlists.
Seeing Ken Griffey hit a home run right after his dad, that's got to be the coolest thing.
Absolutely. That was in 1989.
That's got to be.
Yeah. So check this out. This is the fake history of baseball. Mind you, the fake history of baseball.
Welcome, my friends, to the first ever playing of a new sport. A sport of my own devising. On this
Haterade should pass.
two
Well,
10-person teams will
actually, do me a favor.
engage in a
Here,
battle of- Yes, King. Only
fill this
18
out and I'll sign it. I gotta take care of a couple things.
Two 9-person teams will engage in a battle of strength, speed, and strategy. One team will go out onto the field to play defense, while the other team will take turns hitting this ball with a sticky. What are you going to call this game? What else? Sticky McSnickens. Now your goal, ball thrower, is to get the ball past me 2 times without my hitting it. Fire when ready.
Yep.
Ah! You know you were going to toss it quite so hard, ball thrower. All right. Ah! Okay, that's 2 past you. So you're done, right? No, I said 3 times. No, you said 2. I said 3. 3 strikes and I'm out. I know what I said, shortstop. That's your new name. Shortstop, that's right. Now and forever, shortstop. Shortstop. Yes. All right. 3, you're out. No, the ball was too low. In order for it to count as a strike, it has to pass through the strike zone. Strike zone. That's right. If you don't get the ball past me between my knees and my titties, it's not a strike. It's a non-strike. And you've thrown me 4 non-strikes. I can express to get to first base without my even hitting it. All right, are we ready? That also gets me to first base as well. Where you going? Nobody hit it. I stole the base. You weren't looking, so I stole it. You said you could only advance after you hit the ball. Not when you're stealing. That's bullshit. Okay, shortstop. He's moving. Safe.
Gold, dang, that was time.
Yes, and tie goes to the runner.
Why's that?
Because those are the rules of Sticky McSnickens. That's why. Hey, it's all right, I've got it. No, you can't run. You cannot run. Infield fly rule. In full effect. Look him up. You're out. Oh, I'm not getting that. You can just run all the way home. A home runner. I need a cold drink. Let's take a 5-minute stretch and then start the second half. Mr. Doubleday, we're done. But we've only played 9 innings. 9 innings is enough. Tell us about Dad's biggest score.
Yeah. So the rules of baseball are kind of like a little bit ridiculous. Like it's like 3 strikes, you're out, but then like 4 balls and you get to walk or something like that. Yeah, hit by a pitch, I totally get that. Infield fly, like I understand the rationale for the infield fly, but it just seems so random sometimes. Like it just sometimes feels like, you know, the rules for baseball were just randomly put together. And why are the stadiums all different sizes? I don't know. Some stadiums like 400 feet to the wall, some stadiums 350 feet to the wall. I don't know. I don't get it. Now, here's what I'm going to be giving you. I want to talk a little bit about this. For those of you in the chat, the worksheet that I'm passing out should have been shared in the stream. Should have been shared in the stream yesterday, so you should be able to see that. Lois! There he is. Come on. Now. Oh, bad words. Now, even if you don't know anything about baseball, there are certain things that I can help you understand about these stats. I'm working with a vocal coach. Now, there are 2 players that I'm talking about from the year 2016. 2 players, Danny Murphy for Washington, Mike Trout for the LA Angels. Now, both in the year 2016 were considered MVP caliber players, MVP most valuable player. They were the most valuable to their team. Now, if you actually look at the standings, the Angels missed the playoffs by a great amount. But the Nationals won their division and made it into the playoffs. Again, what is considered most valuable? Are you valuable if you help your team win? Are you not as valuable if your team finishes up with a losing record? I don't know. But there's a bunch of statistics here being thrown at you. Now, some of them are pretty obvious. Like AB, you could predict for baseball. If you know anything about baseball, you would recognize AB, at bat, something like that. R, runs, H, hits. If you see 2B, 3B, HR, that's a double, a triple, and a home run. A run batted in when you hit the ball and someone scores, that's an RBI. For some reason, they call walks base on balls, which is weird. That's why they have it BB there. But every single abbreviation in this chart has an explanation below. They may say base on balls for BB, but it's a walk, really. So now the question becomes, for a lot of these statistics, and again, this is what sports writers write about and people debate over, and people are awarded things depending on how good they are. The question then becomes, can we look at these statistics from 2016 for both these players, and can we determine which player was more valuable? That becomes the question. Which player was more valuable? Oh, you just throw, yeah, right there. There you go. There's a paper on your desk talking about two baseball players, Daniel Murphy, Mike Trout, from the year 2016. Did you see it on the chat yesterday? Nice. Well, who's more valuable? I need a rationale though. They don't want students just kind of doing that in the middle of classes. Unfortunately, the hallways upstairs go like this. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. I know. Where are you going for third period? Where's that? Downstairs C wing? You might be able to like get to her and then go down the stairs. I know, it's a technical term. Anyway, so you say Trout right off the bat. Now, a lot of people would say Trout. Trout has more name recognition. Trout has won more awards and things of that nature. But again, I need some kind of evidence to back that up. Why is Trout considered to be a quote unquote more valuable player? Now, again, being paid more money doesn't necessarily mean you're a better player or you're more valuable. Now, value, yes, in terms of money, but valuable towards helping your team win.
Look at David Murphy's body now and Trout's body now.
Now, again, you're still talking about, yeah, I know. But it's still a subjective type thing there. Let me bring this up a little bit. I know. So, for example, we'll talk about runs and RBIs, because how do you help your team win? You score, right? That's just a basic thing about baseball. So if you look at the category of runs between Murphy and Trout, who scored more runs? Trout, yeah, and by a decent margin right here. Here's the number of runs that they've scored. But again, that doesn't account for the number of runs that they hit in, because one of them could hit the ball and one of their teammates who was on base could score, and that also helps the team. So you also have to look at RBIs. Oh, crap, that was Murphy. All right. Okay, well, again, you're talking about like a subjective standard, because we just looked at two things right there. Home runs, they look pretty even, right? Doubles, they're about 9 off. Look at the number of hits, though. You can only score if you get on base.
Okay, but look at the number of at-bats are exactly the same.
Ooh, interesting. That's actually a very good point. I was going to bring that up. At-bats versus number of hits. Clearly, Murphy had, 20-something more at-bats? And almost 20 more hits. Here's the thing about baseball that you may or may not know. If you get a walk, that does not count as an at-bat. If you get a walk, if you get 4 balls at the plate, literally, like if I go up to bat 3 times in a game and I walk all 3 times, technically that counts as 0 at-bats. It's a weird rule about baseball, right? But that's why I bring up walks, because look at that. Why? That's what I'm saying.
The strikeouts are pretty bad.
Oh, we're gonna get to that. Look at the number of walks. Now, in baseball, a player tends to walk a lot more if they are number one, patient, number two, have a good eye, and number three, the pitchers are afraid of them, so they pitch away from them. Now, intentional walks are a little bit different. Intentional walks is literally the pitcher just throws all the way over to the side to avoid the batter completely. And intentional walks right here, that's IBB. They're pretty much the same. But showing that Trout had a ton more walks is like, yeah, he's probably a bit more patient. The pitchers are probably a bit more afraid of him. But now look at strikeouts. This is pretty telling right here.
But you know what? I think it's easier to be a like strikeout wise.
I see what you're saying. I know. Usually there's like a favorable matchup and a non-favorable matchup and stuff like that. I know.
I would love to be
But I'm just saying strikeouts, though, regardless of left or right-handed, that's a ton more strikeouts. It's over double the number of strikeouts. That's insane. I mean, yeah, you can go to Murphy had a better average. That's just like, there we go. I know these are the types of arguments that we can potentially have. We can look at these statistics and be like, well, what are they? Now, these statistics may not be as popular or noticeable or recognizable. Like these are a bit more like, yes, I get that grand total number. But now if you're talking average, if I get this marker done, average is hits over at bats. Number of hits you got per at bat. So if you go 2 for 4, if you get 2 hits in 4 at bats, your average is 500 or 0.50 or 0.500 or whatever. Usually batting averages in the 300 range are considered very good. I believe it's still nobody has hit 400 since Ted Williams. Is that correct? I know you're nodding. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you know. Ted Williams played like the 1940s. So, yeah, the last guy to actually hit 400. So, getting something like this, 34%, 32%, that's actually considered really good. This on-base percentage right here, on-base percentage means the times that you get on base. So it could be a walk. It could be getting hit by the pitch, something along those lines, as long as a hit. Slugging percentage has to deal with the extra base hits that you get, like doubles and triples and home runs. This is on-base percentage plus slugging percentage. This is a newer thing. Not many people are as familiar with OPS. And then these down here, there are not that many people that are familiar with this stuff down here. Like, for example, this one you might be able to figure out. Do you know what GDP is without looking at the key? Without looking at the key. Yeah, grounded double play. Not many people know that, but it's important to recognize that. It's like, how do you ground into a double play? Well, you have a guy on first, you hit the ball, they throw the guy out at second, but then they throw you out at first because you weren't fast enough.
That's interesting, because their route is so much faster.
Now you're talking about fast. You're talking about speed, you're talking about running. Look at stolen bases.
And the extra base hits is
Yes. Stolen bases do give an indication of speed. Yes, they do. But so do extra base hits. Because extra base hits means you get a double, you get a triple, home run, something along those lines. You get something more than a single, let's just say. There's a lot that you can kind of dissect here. A lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, here's the other thing about stolen bases and extra base hits. Typically, not all the time, typically you'd have more stolen bases from first base. So you'd have to hit a single or get a walk and then steal second. It happens, but not many people steal third. Not many. Ricky Henderson would. Ricky Henderson was very common that he would steal all 3 bases in an inning. Different era altogether. So again, this is like, you ever see that scene in like a movie where like the guy's, or there's a meme about it where the guy's like thinking really hard and all this mathematics starts flying past their head? That's what this is like. Oh my gosh. So there was a statistician in the 1970s by the name of Bill James. He wrote the book Moneyball. Moneyball inspired Peter Brandt and Billy Beane to utilize that system for the Oakland Athletics in the early 2000s. They made a movie about it starring Brad Pitt called Moneyball. We may watch various excerpts from that later on in the school year. But he came up with these formulas trying to decipher, okay, I see all these numbers, but how does that help me determine who is more valuable? So let me get into the worksheet for you. And again, this worksheet is in the PDF of the stream on Google Classroom. Get this to you here. How does one help their team win? How does one help their team win? You score runs, or more specifically, you create opportunities for runs. So Bill James in the 70s originally came up with a formula that he called the runs created formula. But then later on, he came up with a more advanced formula. Here is our objective as a class right now. We are going to take a little time and we are going to attempt to calculate the runs created basic version for both Murphy and Trout. And again, this calculation is trying to figure out how many runs did this player create for their team, either by scoring it themselves or allowing their team an opportunity to score runs. So what I'm going to ask all of you right here, break out those Chromebooks. Because on your Chromebook is the TI-84 calculator app. Yes. And you're going to need that for these calculations. So again, for those of you in the chat, I have this up here right now, but I'm going to change this over to the other PDF. The other PDF had the formulas. It was actually titled on the worksheet, Why So Many Formulas? See, the interesting thing about Moneyball, and some of you do understand it, but it's basically this. People like Ken Griffey Jr. in the 90s, Ken Griffey Jr., Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, Rafael Palmeiro, Alex Rodriguez kind of came in near the end, but whatever, Derek Jeter. All these people were being paid millions and millions and millions of dollars. And these baseball teams couldn't afford to pay them. And as a result of teams not being able to pay these millions of dollars for superstars, they never won. So, using Bill James's system, Peter Brandt and Billy Beane devised a way to create an island of misfit toys for the Oakland Athletics, picking up players that nobody else wanted for one reason or another. And they created a team that won. They won big. They never won the World Series because they flamed out in the playoffs, but they won big in that regular season. It kind of revitalized the game. Eventually, the 2004 Red Sox utilized that system and won the World Series. It's pretty crazy. I think the same thing happened to the 2008 Phillies. They utilized that system, won the World Series. The Giants did that to an effect in the early 2010s. They won 3 World Series. Oh, in 2009? More of a Dodgers fan for my dad.
I got to see them play last year. Bellinger hit 2 deuce. Crazy.
My dad's still waiting for another Dodgers World Series. 1988, he watched it live in the living room. I was 4 or 5 years old. He was flipping out. 1988, Kirk Gibson, Game 1 home run. Oh.
My dad was crushed. He always talks about the...
Yeah, fun fact about that clip. If you watch that clip of Kirk Gibson, Game 1, 1988, when the ball goes over the fence, there are these red lights that pop on. And you're like, what the heck are these red lights? Well, what happened was, in Los Angeles, it was very common for people to leave the game early to beat traffic. That was somebody turning their car on. Yeah. So I got these 2 formulas up here. I got the runs created basic and the runs created advanced. Now, again, you need the calculator in order to do this thing. I would write down your little scratch work on this worksheet. That would be great. But we're going to do the first one together. I'm going to have you knock out. Well, we'll do Murphy. Yeah, we'll do Murphy together. So let's talk about Murphy. So for Murphy, in order to do the calculation for the basic formula, total base, let me use a different marker, a darker marker. Here we go. Total bases. There we go. Times hits plus at bats divided by at-bats plus walks. Oh, no, this is not at-bats. This is walks right here. There we go. Cool. And I need to throw in the appropriate numbers. So again, I'm just looking at Murphy. Murphy. How many total bases did Murphy have in 2016? TB.
69.
Say again?
69. Said extra bases.
At bat. Total bases. 295. Okay. How many hits did Murphy have?
171.
171. Walks?
33.
33. Divided by at bats?
496.
And then I already know the number of walks. It's 33. That's the calculation that you guys have to do. Now, it takes into account total bases being like, okay, double, I get 2 bases. Triple, I get 3 bases. Home run, I get 4 bases. It takes into account hits and walks because walks don't count towards an at-bat, but walks get you on base. This is the basic formula that he came up with in the 1970s to figure out, okay, how many runs does this particular player create? Because if this player creates runs for the team, then perhaps he's someone that we could value. So on that graphing calculator that you have on the Chromebook, of course, you'll have like the little icon at the bottom, right, to click. Make sure you're using proper parentheses. The number that you should be getting, I believe it should be somewhere in the 90s to 100 range, or maybe 110 range or something like that. I think it was the 110 range, but we'll see. What's interesting is that it doesn't actually take into account the number of runs actually scored. Because again, it's talking about the number of runs that you're possibly creating for your team. Because you could hit like a triple. Man, you could hit a triple. Man, you're putting your team in scoring position. But then what could happen after you hit a triple? The next 3 guys could strike out. And then, oh, crap, that sucks. You didn't get to score. But you still created a run opportunity for your team. I'm going to do the calculation separately over here, just so y'all can see what I'm doing. There we go. Okay. Bring these over here. Bring this over here. Here we go. Now, again, with your calculators, you could do something similar, but I'm going to break it down piece by piece. First, I'm going to do something like this. That calculation is the top of my fraction, just the top of my fraction. 496 plus 33. There's the bottom of my fraction. Again, I suggest that when you're going through these formulas, that you do take it piece by piece. Piece by piece. 60,180 divided by 529. Chapow. There's Murphy. Murphy, as a player for the Washington Nationals, let me get rid of this thing here. There we go. Murph, using the basic formula, was able to create 113.76 runs for his team. 113.76 runs for his team. So here's what I'm going to have you do. Take a moment right now. You could use this as a model, but I want you to do the calculation for Trout and write that down. Keeping in mind, this formula does not take into account runs. It doesn't take into account RBIs. It doesn't take into account being hit by a pitch. It doesn't take into account stolen bases. It doesn't take into account all that other stuff that we believed was important. But it does help. You're going to see. Take some time, figure that out. And we'll talk about what we have to do after that. Okay. Lewis, just just so you know, the secretary in the office added your name to a list. Yeah, for the Chromebook issue. I don't know, but she your name is on a list, and they'll figure it out. I hope. Trout's total bases was 272. He had less total bases. Trout had less hits. Here are the number of walks. Here are the number of at-bats. And the number of walks. The reason why in this particular formula, the bottom of the fraction has at-bats plus walks is, again, because the number of walks, or the walk does not count towards an at-bat. Question? Or either hand? All right, let's double check. That's why they have that on the bottom. But what's interesting is that it takes into account total bases. Who had more total bases? Trout or Murphy? Who had more total bases? Murphy. Hits. Who had more hits? Murphy. But here's what it comes down to. Walks. By a large margin, Trout was walked way more often. Way more often. And as a result of getting walked, you give your team more of an opportunity to create runs. What number did y'all get for that, for Trout? Let me double check. It was definitely more. Trout had more in this case. Switch. There we go. Let's see. 272, 153 plus 96. If you wanted to, you could throw this whole thing in at once. I wouldn't really recommend that for the following formula. There it is. Trout. In this case, here is an objective metric. It's an objective metric trying to show you that, yes, Trout created more opportunities for his team to win games. Because you create runs, you can create more opportunities to win. Oh, but ladies and gentlemen, here's your challenge now. And you're not going to do this in class today. This is going to be your assignment on Google Classroom. Look at the second formula. Look at the second formula. That second formula is amazing. First of all, within that second formula, it has three distinct letters, A, B, and C. What the heck are A, B, and C? A is hits plus walks plus hit by pitch, but then they're subtracting grounding into a double play and subtracting caught stealing. B is doing a weighted system, because wouldn't you say a double is better than hitting a single? Wouldn't you say hitting a home run is better than hitting a double? Yeah. So what they do is they're taking all of those individual hits and giving them a multiplier, figuring out another multiplier down here. It is so intense. This is what this guy figured out. Bill James, genius. Then there's this calculation for C, which takes into account at-bats, hit by pitch, walks, sacrifices, sacrifice flies, stuff like that. And he created this advanced formula. Now, this advanced formula does a deep dive into what runs created is all about, because it takes those individual statistics, those things that we were talking about, those extra base hits, let's say, into account. Here's what I suggest to you, and I'm going to have you write this down directly on the worksheet. Write this down directly on the worksheet. First of all, when you do this calculation, I need you, or I would suggest that you calculate A, B, and C separately. Calculate them separately. Calculate them off to the side, and then you'll have A equals, B equals, C equals. Then, once you have the calculations separately for A, B, and C, you will throw them into the formula to where they appropriately belong. I would suggest that you also underline this statement right here. Getting the number of singles. You calculate the number of singles by taking number of hits and subtracting off doubles, triples, and home runs, and what's left over are singles. Here's what I want. In Google Classroom, there are specific directions for this. I don't care if I submitted the correct answer. Good for you. That doesn't help me. If you look at Google Classroom, and I'm going to bring up Google Classroom up here in a moment. If you look at Google Classroom, you are going to be doing these problems for Trout and for Murphy. This is the runs created advanced assignment that I have for you. I'll erase this right here so you can see it. In class, we work through the runs created formula. Your task is to calculate the runs created value for Murphy and Trout using the advanced formula. When in class, I gave suggestions as to how you go about calculating such a number. Here is what I want. I don't just want the final answer. That means nothing to me. Show me how you did it. Take a picture of your scratch work and submit it along with the assignment for both players. This is an ungraded assignment. There's no point in just copying somebody else's work. Don't do that crap. Try it on your own. That is the point of this class. Try it on your own. I'll let you know whether or not you got it right next week, but I'm telling you that your answer should be somewhere in the 90s to 100s. Utilize the graphing calculator on your computers. Utilize that graphing calculator app. It'll be a good friend to you. But that is what I want, ladies and gentlemen. This is an intense formula. I'll tell you one quick story about yesterday. I gave this assignment. Oh, by the way, finally, a reminder, calculate A, B, and C separately. I gave this assignment to my class yesterday. Kid looks at me. Wait a minute. This is a math class? And another kid from across the room was like, mathematics of sports. What did you think it was going to be? I love this formula. It's a pretty solid formula. There are going to be other formulas that we're going to be deep diving into, but this is the first one that we're really going to be deep diving into. We talked about like McGuire and stuff like that and like Babe Ruth and Barry Bonds. There is going to be a project at some point, and we're going to talk about what makes it, but there's going to be a project probably in like a few weeks or maybe a week or two, which the basis of it is who is the greatest home run hitter of all time. And what's going to happen is I'm going to assign each of you a different famous home run hitter. And you're going to have to back up why. I know, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be so cool. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to shut off the live stream because class is going to end in about roughly a minute or so. But please keep in mind that assignment. Again, it's an ungraded assignment. I don't care if you're wrong. I care if you're putting in the effort to get the answer. Show me the work that you did. Show me that you're putting in the effort. I'm signing off the stream now.